Okay, we are on TV. We are now live. All right, if everyone could just take a moment and silence their cell phones. And just a point of housekeeping, if you want to speak tonight, please sign up at a desk right outside these doors here that you passed on your way in. Is that you? No? Oh, somebody else. If you haven't signed up to speak and you are moved to speak at some point during the meeting, please go ahead and there'll be someone out there staffing the sign-in table throughout the evening. Okay. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a few proclamations this evening, and the first one is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm going to come down and read this proclamation, and on my notes here indicate that Amy, and I hope I say it right, Mensch, is here. And if you've got anyone else who would like to join us, please come on up. It's on now. Okay. Here, come over here. We'll do it like this. I'm going to read this, and then if you want to say a few words. Okay. Whereas each year in the United States, more than 15,950 children from birth to 19 years old are diagnosed with cancer, equal to about 47 childhood cancer diagnoses each day. And whereas approximately 1 in 285 children in the United States will be diagnosed with cancer before their 20th birthday, with this number increasing each year. And whereas although the 5-year survival rate for many childhood cancers has reached 84%, some have a mere 1% chance of survival at diagnosis. Thus, nearly 1,600 American children under the age of 19 will die this year from cancer, making it the leading killer of children by disease. And whereas 2/3 that do survive will face at least one chronic health condition later in life, not limited to, but including heart, liver, lung damage, infertility, secondary cancers, and growth deficiencies. And whereas the cancer treatment for children must differ from traditional adult treatments to take into account children's developmental needs and other factors, there are more types, variances of childhood cancers than adult cancers. And whereas the city of Asheville, North Carolina, is a community dedicated to supporting the families and hundreds of children being treated in our state, now therefore I, Esther Manheimer, do proclaim September 2022 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month and urge all citizens to recognize this observance.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for doing this proclamation. 4 years ago, I didn't know what a proclamation was. So now I realize that it's a call to action. And my name's Amy Mensch, and I was born here at Mission. I'm local. I know that doesn't happen very often. But 4 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed here with Wilms tumor, which is a type of kidney cancer in kids. And I was told that day, this is the good kind of cancer. No one should ever hear that. There's no good kind of childhood cancer. Cancer in general, but especially childhood. That changed my life forever, and that's why I'm here today. I thought the care that we received here and the support was sort of an isolated thing because there wasn't very good support. And so that's why this is really important, that we need to recognize that as citizens that we need to start supporting these families that are diagnosed. I know several mothers here in our area that have lost their children like I have. My daughter moved to heaven last year, and I don't get to watch her grow up. So I would really encourage everybody to take tonight and go tell your neighbor what gold means. Gold means children are more precious than gold. That's why that's the color for childhood cancer. And hang up a ribbon on your mailbox Share what you know, look into it a little more. I just encourage people to go donate blood and platelets because that's going to help these kids. There's so many things we can do locally. I know Weaverville has really stepped up this month to do this for collecting hats, raising money, all kinds of things. And I would love to see Asheville do that too because this is an amazing city. And there's so many amazing people in it, and it's even bigger, so we could do even more great things. And so I just really appreciate this opportunity to call you guys to action. And if anybody has any questions or ever wants to contact me or you need help and you have a child with cancer, call me. Amy Minch, you'll find me. Thank you so much.
Okay, next we have Latinx Heritage Month, and Councilwoman Kim Roney will read the proclamation. And anyone who is here for this proclamation, please come forward.
Gracias. Whereas 8 Latin American countries, Honduras, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Chile, Mexico, and Belize celebrate their independence from September 15 to October 15 and
considerando que 8 países latinoamericanos, Honduras, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Chile, México y Belice celebran su independencia del 15 de septiembre al 15 de octubre. Y
whereas beloved Asheville and Asheville in Espanol are hosting a series of celebration events to share Latinx culture, art, history, traditions, and celebrate our Asheville Latinx community and
por cuanto beloved Asheville y Asheville en español están organizando una serie de eventos de celebración para compartir la cultura, el arte, la historia y las tradiciones latinas y celebrar nuestra comunidad latina de Asheville. Y
whereas we support the Asheville community through our love, work, time, and energy in many ways, and
por cuanto apoyamos a la comunidad de Asheville a través de nuestro amor, trabajo, tiempo y energía de muchas maneras. Y
whereas we daily fulfill the role of essential worker, growing and harvesting our food on the farms, making transportation possible through building and repairing roads, sharing food to nourish the body through tiendas and restaurants, creating vital infrastructure and housing through construction, and caring for the elders, young, and those who are sick via health care and child care roles, and
por cuanto cumplimos diariamente el papel de trabajadores esenciales, cultivando y cosechando alimentos en las granjas, haciendo posible el transporte a través de la construcción y reparación de caminos, compartiendo alimentos para nutrir el cuerpo a través de tiendas y restaurantes, creando infraestructura vital y viviendas a través del trabajo en construcción y cuidando jóvenes, ancianos y enfermos a través de los roles de salud y cuidado de niños. Y
whereas Latinx people supported their neighbors in the difficult days of the pandemic, working as leaders in beloved Asheville and Asheville in Espanol to collectively distribute over 5 million pounds of food, PPE, and health information, 500,000 diapers, and other urgently needed resources to residents in Asheville and Buncombe County, heroically risking their lives for the common good. And
por cuanto las personas latinas apoyaron a vecinos en los días difíciles de la pandemia, trabajando como líderes en Beloved Asheville y Asheville en español para distribuir colectivamente más de 5 millones de libras de alimentos, PPE e información de salud, 500,000 de pañales y otros recursos necesarios con urgencia para residentes en Asheville y el condado de Buncombe, arriesgando heroicamente sus vidas por el bien común. Y
Whereas we in the Asheville community must always work to protect everyone in the Latinx community from being targeted by hate, discrimination, and systems of oppression, and
Por cuanto nosotros en la comunidad de Asheville siempre debemos trabajar para proteger a todos en la comunidad latina de ser objeto de odio, discriminación y sistemas de opresión.
now therefore I do proclaim September and October as Latinx Heritage Months in the city of Asheville and encourage residents to participate in Latinx heritage activities.
Ahora, por lo tanto, yo, Esther Mannheimer, alcaldesa de la ciudad de Asheville, por la presente proclamo septiembre y octubre como meses de la herencia Latinx en la ciudad de Asheville y alentar a los residentes a participar en las actividades de Latinx Heritage.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much for the proclamation. And something then, I used to live here in downtown, and I remember that I used to wake up 6 in the morning to do different things in the city. And one of the more predominant language in the morning is Spanish. So it's a lot of people that work in construction, making these hotels, making a lot of renovation in the city. We start working in the kitchens, start working in the restaurants. So Monica came from work today. She worked in a restaurant. Pilar came from work. I came from work, so we are the blood of this city. So I hope now that I hear that more people are talking about better parking for workers in downtown, I hope that when you think in having the option to better parking in downtown is giving us a lot of opportunities to be working here in downtown, because we're strong on hardcore with all the prices and we have in parking. So we're in deep support, Latinx community are in deep support of better options to parking for workers in downtown. We are working to ban plastic bags. So we are completely in, Latinx community is completely into ban plastic bags from Banco County. And we hope that this month, then these 2 months, then is from September to October, I hope that you take the time to try a different type of Latino American food that you never tried before. We invite you to try tacos, we invite you to try pupusas, we invite you to try pollo en tajada. It's a lot, we have a very tasty community flavor here in our community from the Latinx community. We have many different flavors, and we invite you to try the more than you can, and if you can, try tasty food because it's my favorite. So thank you so much.
And next we have International Artist Day, and anyone who is here for that, I have John Davis here? Yes. Oh, riding up with us on the elevator? Yes, I remember.
Whereas October 25th is recognized as International Artist Day, and whereas 68% of tourism in the United States is related to the arts and leisure, and hospitality accounts for 40% of jobs in Buncombe County. And whereas artists and arts-related businesses in Buncombe County accounted for $492 million in earnings and $1.6 billion in sales in 2019. And whereas the River Arts District has been growing as a haven for artists since the mid-1980s, and now more than 300 artists have studio and/or gallery space in 25 buildings. And whereas the arts in this region, including the River Arts District, are recognized in numerous local, regional, national, and international publications. And whereas Wendy Whitson became active in promoting the River Arts District since she first rented space at Warehouse Studios in 2002, and then purchased what is now Northlight Studios on Depot Street in 2011. And whereas Wendy Whitson served on the board of the River District Arts, later River Arts District Artists, Inc., for over 15 years in multiple positions, including president. And whereas Wendy Whitson served on the boards of the Asheville Chamber of Commerce and the BB&T Bank, and represented the Arts District on the Asheville Area Riverfront Redevelopment Commission. And whereas Wendy Whitson was instrumental in connecting the Chamber of Commerce, City of Asheville, Center for Craft, the Asheville Arts Area Council, the River Arts District Artists, and the University of North Carolina, Asheville to partner in launching a multi-year study of the arts sector and its importance to the local economy. And whereas the artists of Northlight Studio and the River Arts District, Inc. are funding a sculpture to recognize Wendy's contributions and the role of the arts in our region, which will be unveiled on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Now, therefore, Esther Mannheimer, the mayor of the city of Asheville, North Carolina, does hereby proclaim October 25th, 2022 as Wendy Whitson and River Arts District Day of Honor on International Artist Day.
I want to thank you all very much for this recognition of Wendy's work and the fact that she was such a great supporter of Asheville and of the River Arts District. So thank you very much. She died last November of leukemia, and we're coming up on the anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda, and I have a request to consider separately items D1 and 2, which concern the resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and, if awarded, enter an agreement with the Office of National Drug Control Policy for the 2022 High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Grant, and then the related funding piece to it. The other item that has been requested to be voted on separately is item N, the remote meeting policy. So do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda without items D1 and 2 and items N1 and 2?
So moved. Second, Kim.
Okay, so we have a motion from Sandra, second from Kim. Okay, I have some people that are signed up to speak on the consent agenda, and I don't know which item, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take public comment now on the consent agenda, but if you wanted to talk about those other items, go ahead and just, this will be the one shot at speaking on the consent agenda, anything on the consent agenda. Speakers, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Watch the lights on the lectern. Green means go, orange means you're getting close to the end, and then red means stop, and Maggie's our official timekeeper. Well, the lectern is also our timekeeper. So I'm gonna just take these in order. The first person signed up to speak under the consent agenda. Well, before we do that, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any, for other than items N and D, does anyone have any questions about the rest of the consent agenda? Okay. Okay, the first person signed up to speak is Elise Martyr. And then David Evans, you'll be next.
Hello. I am speaking on consent item N. Good evening, council members. My name is Elise Martyr, and I live in West Asheville. I'm one of over 2,800 subscribers to the city's YouTube channel, where I'm an avid viewer of the advisory board content. Normally, I would actually watch this council meeting from the comfort of my home, but I came out today to address you in person for the first time in this room because I feel that adoption of the proposed remote meeting policy will have significant negative consequences on accessibility, transparency, and accountability. I strongly oppose the proposed remote meeting policy for the city's advisory boards and commissions on the following grounds. The policy allows for only one of two options, fully in person or fully remote, while ignoring growing need and desire for hybrid meetings. It requires a supermajority of board members to keep meetings remote. It acknowledges, yet accepts, that in-person meetings will no longer be live streamed and made publicly available, and it binds each board's decision for a year. Accessibility is paramount with regard to citizen advisory boards. The ability to host remote or hybrid meetings leads to more diverse membership by lowering barriers to participation, such as the need for childcare, reduces scheduling conflicts, and eliminates the need for transportation. Further, the absence of recordings for in-person advisory board meetings and the acceptance of such is really unconscionable. It's a regrettable step backwards for accessibility, transparency, and accountability. I further contest the provision that choice of venue must remain for an entire year. This caveat creates needless rigidity. Circumstances change, technological resources improve. Perhaps the participation of a new member is dependent on one format versus another, and I don't feel these decisions should be binding. Although there is need to adopt a remote meeting policy in absence of the COVID-19 state of emergency, I urge the members of this council to amend the policy to 1, allow for hybrid meetings, 2, require only a simple majority vote, 3, ensure all meetings are recorded and made publicly accessible regardless of digital or physical location, and 4, provide flexibility to each body to adjust as needed for its work and members. With all of the losses we've faced as a result of the pandemic, we cannot lose the great strides made in accessibility, transparency, and accountability that came with widespread adoption and acceptance of remote meetings. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is David Evans, and then Sharon Summerall.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dave Evans. I'm a recent addition to your city, and I want to thank you for your service. I know that being on a city council is very often a very frustrating and thankless job, so you have my sympathy. I'm here to offer my help to you. I'm here to speak on behalf of D1 to get you hooked up to the HIDA. I've worked with HIDAs in Colorado and Illinois and other places, and they can be very beneficial to help you address the drug problem that you have here in Asheville. I've spent most of my professional life dealing with alcohol and drug issues, particularly setting up programs in the criminal justice system for offenders. I've had several books published on the subject, and I'd like to offer my services as a volunteer to help you deal with your drug problem. So I think getting connected with the HIDA is good. They're very good. It'll connect you with a whole national network of people that will be able to help you. And I've had a lot of success in this. I created the New Jersey drunk driving program, and I had the lowest recidivism rate in the country. So I'm going to offer my services to you, and I'm here because my grandchild is now here, and I want to make sure that he grows up in a safe environment. So I'll be around doing what I can to help you with that. So thank you.
I see our city manager is very interested, so please make sure you leave your contact information.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you have emails on your website?
We do.
I'll send you an email, a little bit of my background, and so if you set up commissions or anything like that, I'd be happy to help you out.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Sharon Summerall, and then it'll be Nina Tovish, you're on deck.
Mayor, council members, I'm Sharon Summerall, resident of Asheville. So I just left a Boards and Commissions Realignment meeting, working committee group. There was 10 of us in A109 of the Public Works Building and 5 of us on remote. And Patrick Conant volunteered to set us up for a hybrid meeting, and we had a successful hybrid meeting. We think we had a little bit of hearing issue with the people that were Zooming in, which could have been easily resolved, I'm sure. Patrick set it up. We had speakers on each of our stations. We talked to each other. We looked at each other. We communicated, and it was a successful 2-hour meeting. So I am in full support of hybrid meetings. I do believe for accessibility for the people that could not make it for one reason or another, they attended, and so therefore we had more people than we would have. So I support anything we can do to continue with our hybrid meetings, however that may look. And That's all I have to say for a change.
Thank you. Nina Tovish and then Patrick Koenig.
Good evening. My name is Nina Tovish. I live in Shiloh. City of Asheville should enable remote viewing and participation at all public meetings. We should be facilitating transparency, making it easier for everyone to attend and participate, and fully providing assistive technologies and relevant accommodations for persons with disabilities. How is it okay to exclude people based on their ability to travel or their physical status? Why would we require people to enlarge their carbon footprint to be part of our democratic processes? Hybrid meetings are an essential element of equitable access to government and environmentally responsible as well. I do not believe the choice to be in person only should be an option for public meetings, nor that these decisions should be made at the whim, supermajority or not, of the attendees or members. Hybrid streamed meetings are the new norm, and they offer many benefits, even though at present they use a nascent and imperfect technology. That technology will only improve, and likely rapidly. Asheville must invest in and embrace this tool of governance as swiftly as possible. We also need to normalize and embrace this mode of gathering as a community and doing the public's business. One of the few positive developments that emerged from the coronavirus pandemic was the recognition that the available technology is already good enough to make remote participation viable. We should be improving and extending it, not abandoning it. As Sharon just mentioned, we had a very successful hybrid meeting just now. We got a lot done, and it worked really well, and it was put together on very short notice by one person with his own equipment, Patrick Koenig. This council has done business as a hybrid body itself, including taking votes that way. It works. Why would you be making it harder for people to participate? Thanks for your attention today.
After Patrick Koenig, it will be Kit Molina Navert.
City Council, my name is Patrick Koenig. I'm a resident of East West Asheville. My comments relate to item N, the remote meetings policy for boards. I support that this policy allows boards the option to meet remotely. We've spent 2 years learning tools to make remote meetings possible. These meetings solve many of the long-standing barriers to access, such as transportation, childcare, and physical accessibility. They're live streamed by default, giving residents the flexibility to attend meetings wherever they are. However, the policy fails to address how the public will be able to participate in these meetings. I encourage council to clearly outline that live call-in public comment will be allowed for all remote meetings. A clear, consistent policy will make things easier for both staff and the public. The proposed policy also allows boards to return to fully in-person meetings. I find it disappointing that city staff do not plan to live stream those meetings, nor provide options for remote participation by members of the public. The city's comprehensive plan has a section under interwoven equity titled Improved Community Involvement in Decision-Making. Performance measures list a more inclusive public engagement process by soliciting the maximal amount of public input on all policies. Council, does this policy move us closer to the vision outlined in the comprehensive plan? As proposed, the policy will make the meetings of boards that opt for in-person meetings less accessible than those conducted over the past 2 years. Additionally, the policy requires a supermajority vote to adopt remote meetings, language that was added to the resolution on the consent agenda just this morning. Why is our council considering a policy that includes a structural bias towards less accessible meetings? I encourage council to correct course and set our city on a path forward to modern public meetings. If boards want to meet in person, the city should provide the infrastructure to make those meetings hybrid, with the accessibility support provided by remote options. That means the city live streams every public meeting and allows folks to call in to make public comment. You might be thinking, we don't have the resources or staff capacity to run all meetings in a hybrid format. If that's the case, then I strongly encourage the city to continue to conduct these meetings remotely, rather than shifting to a format that is inaccessible to many residents. It's 2022. Inclusive, accessible public meetings should be the minimum requirement for our city moving forward. Let's work towards better public meetings that provide residents with a variety of options to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last person to speak would be Grace Barron Martinez.
Hey, City Council. I'm Kathleen Nauert, and I also want to speak to the remote meetings policy. I support everything that Elise and Sharon and Nina and Patrick have said. Yeah, for the past couple of years, being able to participate remotely has made me a much more engaged citizen. And I'm speaking as someone who works from home and doesn't have children, so I have a lot more time and energy privilege than most of our residents. So I feel like taking away this accessibility is a huge concern. I agree that we need to have policies in place to accommodate the new normal and to make things more standardized and predictable. That will help with public participation. But my ask today is that you do not pass this as it stands, but send it back to boards and commissions to be revisited in a way that prioritizes hybrid meetings and accessibility. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, City Council. I really appreciate everyone who spoke about the regression that we're trying to make with our meetings policy, and I agree with those folks. But I came to speak about item D. I don't know how many of you have lost someone to addiction, but I think that's something that many of us are all too familiar with. And consent item D provides an additional $204,638 to Asheville Police through the federal government's high-intensity drug trafficking areas grant. This program has been around since 1988, before I was even born, and yet the results speak for themselves. In 1988, 4,865 people died from addiction, which is about 2 in every 100,000 people in the U.S. population. By the year 2020, that number was 91,799, or 28 people for every 100,000. As the UN system common position on drug policy is emphasized, drug use and dependency should not be treated as a criminal matter, but rather as a health issue to be addressed through rights-based measures, including public health education, the provision of mental health treatment, care and support, rehabilitation, and transition and reintegration programs. If you are going to take these federal funds, then remove the same $204,638 from APD's budget and put it towards harm reduction programs in our community, which are what are actually responsible for Buncombe County being the only county in North Carolina to decrease its opioid deaths during the pandemic. I have lost too many people in my life to addiction, and it is truly offensive that we would use this disease to justify criminalization. We know who police will be targeting with these funds. We also know that although they claim the money will only be for trafficking, user-level amounts of drugs found on a person can count as a trafficking charge with as little as 4 grams of heroin, leading to a 70-month mandatory minimum sentence, all while prosecutors are twice as likely to pursue mandatory minimum sentences for Black people as they are for white people charged with the same offense. The racial disparities are inarguable, as 80% of those in federal prison for drug offenses are Black or Latinx. Our jail kills people. It doesn't save lives. We've had 34 years of this failed program and over 50 years of a failed drug war. If you take this money tonight, more of those lives will continue to be lost, of the people that we love. You will be responsible for continuing the war on drug users and justifying police targeting our neighbors who need our support the most. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the people that have signed up to speak under the consent agenda. So we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda without item D and item N. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now I need a motion to adopt item D, the resolution. It's just one vote, item D1 and D2. Yes. Do I have a motion to adopt item D1 and D2?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, and does anyone, would someone like to ask any questions of staff regarding this item?
Well, I will just say that I don't think we have enough information about the outcomes of Haritas in our community. But something that's bigger for me in this moment is that while we're understaffed and our job is to direct management priorities, I know that we all see the issue with violent crime in our community, especially among our youth. And so if we're going to meet this moment addressing violence among our youth, we're going to have to make choices in what we prioritize. So for me, that looks like youth programming, violence interrupter programming. That's something I want to say yes to. So if we're going to continue the war on drugs programming that we know doesn't address the root causes of crime, and also we don't have the capacity to do both, then I have to say no to this tonight.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Do you want us to raise our hands? Okay, all those who vote in favor, please raise your hand. And any opposed, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Next, item N, the remote meeting policy. Do I have a motion to adopt item N?
Yes.
And/or questions? Yes.
I have a motion, but it has an addition. So we talked about this in the Boards and Commission meeting, specifically in item 1 today. And then in our governance committee as well, we discussed item 2, I think I have that right. And I'm wondering if we might add pursuit of a hybrid option for advisory boards so that we can go ahead and move forward with the whole policy. We need this policy so that we can continue to have virtual meetings for our council subcommittee meetings. But I think we're really close with the ARPA funds that we had with the staff application to being able to increase public engagement. And if we're just like a few months out from seeing more opportunities to improve accessibility of our meetings, and we want to go ahead and move forward, then this is my motion.
And that would be with regard to the advisory?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Move to adopt a resolution amending the rules of procedure for boards and commissions to include a remote meeting policy for advisory boards and commissions appointed by the City Council with prioritization of archiving a video or audio record of the committee meeting and pursuit of hybrid options for advisory boards.
Okay, that's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do you guys, do you want to say anything? Is that, I assume that's fine.
We will
Yeah.
do this directly.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I can point out, this only refers to N2.
Yeah, I see. Well, no, N1 is,
N1
N1.
and N2.
no, the motion was for N1.
For the
This is,
advisory.
it wasn't for,
So N2.
no.
Excuse me, N1.
N1.
Not N2.
Yes, N1 is the advisory boards.
Right, so we're going to do two votes on this. So that was the motion concerning N1. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then a motion to adopt N2. This is the council rules of procedure.
So
So
moved.
moved. I mean, it's like,
Okay, so Kim first and Sandra second.
and I'll second, yes.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the, yes, if you were only here for the consent agenda, this is your time to escape. Because we're going to move on to presentations and reports, and we're going to turn it over to the manager for the manager's report.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to first start by giving you kind of a preview of what we're going to present tonight. Jay Dundas is going to present to you information about our capital improvement program. And then Kim Marmon-Sachs will talk about the American Rescue Plan Act update to provide you with a status of where we are. But there's another order of business that I need to take care of, which is to actually wish our esteemed city attorney, the birthday boy, a happy birthday. And Brad Brown,
He's 29 again, right?
we were contemplating singing happy birthday and having you tell us how old you are, but I won't embarrass you. I think I've embarrassed you enough. So, happy birthday, Brad. Glad you're in Nashville. So I will now turn it over to Mr. Dundas.
Thank you. Jay Dundas, Capital Projects Director. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Deborah had said, I'm going to update you on various city capital projects, and then I'll be handed over to Kim Marmon-Sachs. So, key takeaways for this portion of the presentation are just to reiterate and to update Council that we are intending to continue to bring you quarterly status updates. You've heard a lot about capital in the last month or two. We certainly want you to have the information you need to be informed to help us and to help yourselves and the community go through the budget process. So we're willing to try to provide as much information as we need to. Update city on the 2016 general obligation bonds. I do have one project in this update that is specifically a bond-funded project. And again, just to remind council that we are shooting for a contract award date next summer, 2023, for encumbering all the GEO funds, which will allow us to meet our deadline. We're going to come back to council on, led by the Finance Department, the Finance and HR Committee, on September 27th to give a deeper financial update on where we stand. That has been a council request, so we're bringing that information back to that committee so we can so you can have an understanding of where we are with spending, and then also an idea of how we're projecting to get to those target dates. And then also, as Walter Ear has presented over the last few months, and I believe it was the last council meeting, we are continuing to work on our capital needs preparation study, which will inform our future capital budgets. And we will again share this additional information with the council in the quarterly updates and also Finance and HR Committee. The projects that I'm presenting today they're significant in that they represent some of our biggest expenditures at this point. They have also had some, they have had some significant progress since the last time that we talked about it, which may have been actually at a contract award. Just to kind of frame the reason that we don't talk about all capital projects in a presentation like this is that we have 35 active projects, and when I say active, that represents things that are in the $100,000 to millions of dollar range. And so we've got a lot of spending, a lot of activity going on with capital improvement. Funding sources for those projects include GEO bond, general fund, capital budget, enterprise funds, and grants. That's not to mention all of the other maintenance and smaller projects that we have going as well. So the highlighted projects that we have here are College and Patton Avenue bike lanes, Broadway Public Safety Station, Dr. Wesley Grant Center, and the French Broad River Greenway West. So we do have support staff from transportation if there are any questions, but essentially the College and Patton bike lane project is creating bike lanes in the downtown area from Pritchard Park to Biltmore and Spruce Streets along College Street and Biltmore on Patton Avenue. This project does not entail a lot of much construction, if any at all. It is really just being performed through painting, restriping streets and creating the loading zones, this bicycle access along these corridors. Connects east and west downtown. There has been extensive public engagement through April and May of this year. And then again, the design and striping plan is finalized. And then there will be several loading zones created to help assist and certainly not complicate the downtown accessibility with regard to deliveries. And then the plan is to have this installed in September. Broadway Public Safety Station is certainly progressing. As a matter of fact, the photos I'll share in a second are about a month ago, and it is totally different. The site is changing every day, so encourage people to drive out there and see it for yourself. This is site rendering. This is a fairly small site for this type of activity, but we are being able to fit it all on here. I did have an image overlaid on this rendering, and it's going in just exactly like this rendering shows. A lot of site improvements and also preservation with regard to stormwater, riparian buffer for stream preservation and protection. But this is what about a month ago, what the site looked like. The picture on the right-hand side here, where you see that retaining wall, it's fully built out to where you have connected. The building that is in the pictures here is connected to that retaining wall, and that retaining wall will be an integral wall of this facility. Important components of this station is the first station we've built since 2007. This is built with the idea of firefighter health and safety foremost in mind. We're separating the living quarters from the working quarters, and so that was not an element that was designed in the past, and that is a very strong focus. And also the health and wellness of the firefighters is foremost. This design is inclusive for gender inclusivity. Former stations were built with before women were actively firefighters, and this is now designed to accommodate multiple shower and restroom facilities. Facilities includes a new EOC, an Emergency Operations Center, that currently is housed in the municipal building. This will be intentional and designed for that purpose. And it also has community space where public safety officials and the community come together to collaborate and to develop and speak on safety concerns that affect the public. As I said, this project is moving along, and the anticipated completion date is March 2023. Dr. Wesley Grant Center, same thing with the pictures here. If you drove by it today, this is not what you saw. This is really moving along, and it's you are seeing a lot more site improvements than what these pictures show. But this is a project that has really been a great thing for us to be taking a part in, and really is coming out of the ground, and we're really we're meeting the schedule as expected. The amenities that we're getting out of this facility are indoor improvements, our multi-purpose gym and community meeting centers. Outdoors include a lot of site improvements. I won't read through those all, but some parking and space accommodations, restrooms, and then solar panels to consider the sustainability aspects of this project. Recreational enhancement include indoor and outdoor courts, picnic tables, and neighborhood swimming pools with the amenities of toddler play zones, lounge deck, and picnic areas to support that facility as well. And then the anticipated completion date of this is June 2023. So we are wrapping up the French Broad River Greenway West project. This is a mile-long connector. Some landmarks here would be New Belgium Brewery on the right side here, Carrier Park up and to the left here. So this is a 1 mile. Here's some pictures looking down. I believe this one is from the Haywood Road intersection there. And so these are site basically looks like this throughout the entire 1 mile section. We're building 1 mile of continuous greenway, and it connects with the 2 existing greenways to create a 4 mile stretch of greenway. The plan is to continue to enhance this and provide connectivity for this transportation network. An important highlight, and I failed to mention in the previous ones, is that Dr. Wesley Grant Center is partially CIP, or GO bond funded. This one is highlighted because we were using about 80% of the funding through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Those are federal funds that we use extensively for our transportation projects, and it's very effective for us to be able to leverage a lot of the city's dollars to build some sidewalks and other transportation improvements. I'm happy to note I got an email as I was working on this slide this morning, and the scheduled ribbon cutting. I was put on here an anticipated completion date Actually, we now have a scheduled ribbon cutting for September 15th at 4:30, so it's ready to use. So again, key takeaways are essentially we're fulfilling the thoughts of being able to come back to council and keep you updated on capital projects. We are going to take a deeper dive into the GEO bond funded projects. And then also we are preparing for the future and that long-term vision with regard to assessing our current facilities and programming those into a longer view. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kim Marmon-Sachs, unless there's any questions. I'm open for questions, and then pass it over to Kim.
Yes, I
for
would like
Arpa.
to have.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, more or less, I guess I'm going to make a comment. But my concern is the bike lanes for College and Patton Avenue. And I've always been outspoken about my concern with the traffic and the high-density area of downtown. I am concerned with us bringing bicycle lanes into an area that's already congested. The bicycle, and don't get me wrong, I love bicycling and I love it. It's great recreation and sport. I mean, but the thing is, I don't think the downtown area is where it should be. So I looked at the plan that you had there, and it's basically, it's planned to sort of go through all parts of downtown area, connecting. I noticed that, of course, I was an advocate against the Merriman Avenue for the same reasons, as far as loading, the traffic impact. Basically, I just feel that we're actually more or less looking at the special interest groups' needs and concerns as opposed to the city as a whole, and that is my concern. Basically, of course, what happened with the Biltmore bike lane, we had a member of council whose business was affected by it, and so she was able to actually sort of, I guess, to me, I felt that she was more or less impacted by it, so she understood the concern. So when she basically spoke with the people in the neighborhood that were affected, of course, we ended up putting that on pause. A lot of the people basically in this particular area of College and Patton, they said that they were never informed. I noticed that on the report there, it says that there was tremendous outreach, and many of them, and I can name some of them, that said no, they didn't hear anything about it. This is my concern. My concern is we're moving forward on something that is going to impact the whole community. And when I say community, it's going to impact not only the businesses. If we start impacting businesses without getting input for what really, what the needs are. And I understand the comprehensive plan and how we want to get to that mobile transportation. But the thing is, I think pedestrian transportation walkways are really important, especially ones that are ADA accessible. I think that we need to be concentrating on things like that we can actually control now. And what my concerns is, it's like we're building, I think it's like, not that I'm saying we can never put the bicycle lanes downtown. I just think right now, in the midst of the growth and all the changes and all the, right now people are complaining they don't have parking downtown. Once you put bike lanes, that takes away parking. And then what I'm concerned about is you're going to add, especially in that Pack Square, you have people, pedestrians walking around there all the time. Now you're going to put in bicycles, and then you're going to put in, you've already got automobiles. And my concern is too, and then I understand they want to do the electric bikes, and we want to do, to me, I really believe, and I'm just going to, I think we're just headed to a perfect storm. And basically, I'm going to speak out on it because I'm just sort of, every time I see it, it just, sort of gets to me, and I just want to just make that comment. I'm sorry I take up so much of your time, but
I would just say that I hear you, and I know that this is a rough time. There was a time in Asheville's history we had the second best trolley system in the country, and now we have the second highest bike pedestrian accident ratio in the state. That's not good for the people who live and work here, or businesses, or tourists. So we're kind of getting out of where we are now to where we aspire to be, and it's gonna take some time and energy. For me, I'll be supporting it because we have to do something to make our roads work for all the people who use it, including for cars. And I think if we can slow down the traffic, That makes it safer for the cars too.
But-
So
yeah.
I'm not saying that it's perfect, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be.
And yeah, I think, I understand what you're trying to do, but like you said, I do believe that what you're doing is you're making it more congested. And what's going to happen, people don't go downtown already, locals. So now they're really not going to go downtown. And so I basically think what you're doing is actually providing a lifestyle downtown, a lifestyle for a certain amount of people that live there, can afford to live downtown, people that can afford to visit tourists downtown. And basically what has happened when you start doing that type of thing, then you're isolating people in the community. I just think that it's not the time to do this. And like I said, time will tell, and I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope it works. But I just want to give you my point of view on where I think we're headed with this, and I don't think it's the right place, especially with all the growth, that's on the.
And I don't want to interrupt this, but I wanted to just clarify, at what point would council be asked to take action on this item? I know tonight we're just hearing a presentation. This isn't on our agenda for a vote or anything.
It says
Yeah,
Well,
Anna Sexton is here with transportation, and she can.
Well, no,
provide
if
some
you want to put it
comment.
back on the slide,
Yes,
it gives us a little bit of a, I think did you give us a date for the?
It's to be bid for installation in September.
And so in terms of council taking any action on this item, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume we're going to have a contract on our consent agenda. Maybe that'd be the extent of it.
Yeah, it would be the award of the contract that
Yeah.
happens immediately after the bid.
Right. So it's not, doesn't come to us in kind of a policy question. It comes to us more like, and now it's time to award the contract. So I think what would be helpful, you're about to say something helpful?
I also.
No, you're going to
well,
say
I
something
mean-
helpful? Okay.
So we vote on our capital projects every year when we vote on a budget.
Well, right.
This was included in the capital projects budget that was approved by this council. And I get that, maybe folks didn't get in the weeds on every little thing, but I just caution us that, things that are like so far down the road, we're opening up for a bid in September, which is this month, if Brad's at
It
your
is fall,
birthday?
yes.
Yeah. And I mean, we did vote on this, and so I clearly respect where you are and that you disagree with it. However, I really question our process. If we're going to open this back up after all the public engagement and the fact that we voted on this in the budget, and we're going to open it back up to rethink it at this stage in the ballgame.
No,
We need to
the
actually
public,
speak
the
to
public
process,
engagement that you
because-
said you actually did, I spoke to many of the people that actually have businesses, the restaurants, and they said no one's reached out to them. So that's my concern. How transparent were we on this?
Well,
If
and
no one-
Councilwoman Kilgore, a couple things, because I have to correct the fact that you insinuated that one councilwoman that manages a business on Biltmore, I assume that would be me,
Yes.
opposed the bike lanes on Biltmore, but frankly, the business didn't, because it didn't impact them. What we did support, and what I did support personally, was hearing more from the businesses that were impacted.
Yes.
So what I brought to light then, and I'll mention here now with this
And
one,
can we
was
just-
that we have a very different process for each of these. With Merriman, it came to council to vote on, right? With this particular one, it came through a capital budget vote. With Biltmore, it wasn't going to come to us at all, and it didn't come through anything. So I'm not real clear on what the process is. So I both
Yeah,
want to
and
clarify that employer comment, not accurate, but also that there is some need for some consistency.
Well, and I think that
process.
is a very helpful point, because Merriman, we were asked to vote on because we had to essentially agree to a partnership with DOT on that.
Correct.
This one is fully within our purview and was in our capital budget. And Biltmore was the DOT's project, which we weren't funding, which we will now have to fund because we made the decision at the last minute to delay it. So I can see how this is really confusing, and it's a little unclear, well, when do you, if you want to put the brakes on something? I guess this was just supposed to be an update and not a rehashing of this project. I personally am very supportive of it myself, but I don't know if there is a desire to rehashed other than, Sandra, you've raised these points.
Well, the
so-
only thing is,
It
I
also went
think
through a
is
couple
this.
review bodies. Downtown Commission heard it, I recall.
You said what,
Design
say?
review, possibly. It did go through some public committee review as well.
Okay, but like I said, so many people have reached out to me and said they have not. So I'm just concerned with, and that's the same thing with Merriman Avenue. So what are we not reaching out to people to get input? I mean, these are businesses that are directly impacted and said they knew nothing about it. So I'm trying to figure out, where is the disconnect?
It's complicated.
We're saying we've done it, and they're saying you haven't.
Well, we're responding to the Biltmore was a rushed experience. It was an attempt to save money and get some things moved forward on behalf of staff. I think I've heard from staff that, they wish there had been more time for more engagement, and that's essentially what we decided. We said, hey, you know what? We heard from enough businesses that there's some conflicts here with loading and reduced lanes, and so let's step back. Now we'll have to pay for that when it happens. But to your point, there's not a clear process.
And that's the same thing that they were saying. They were talking about all the restaurants there, the Jerusalem, the Hungry Monk, Mayfield said they knew nothing about it. These are all restaurants that are right within that circle that's impacted, that said they knew nothing about it. So I'm just...
If I could, staff is willing to go back out and have some additional public outreach, but I do want you all to understand that you have adopted a policy of multimodal transportation, complete streets, public right-of-way should be accessible to all users. And what we heard is just this evolution that our community is going through in terms of kind of like growing pains and adapting to the ability for all users to have access. We think that, we feel that just about every community in this country is moving towards a multimodal approach to enable us to literally grow into the future in terms of emission reductions. I mean, there's a number of reasons why we ought to be doing this. And yes, it gets uncomfortable. It gets a little concerning when businesses cannot see that vision today, but we are willing to explain what the vision is, explain how we're going to manage parking and loading and all of that. But again, this was supposed to be an update.
Well, I guess my concern is just
Something that
basically
has
the
been
relationship between the city of Asheville and Asheville on Bikes, who I feel that doing the driving as to where and how we do things. That is my concern. We should have a pedestrian committee that actually drives it.
We
or
have
ADA.
a bike.
I'm just saying, but I think it's being driven by one particular group. That's my concern.
I think certainly one group has a lot more advocacy, but I would hope that you would trust that your staff is not being led by a group, but through policies that you all have adopted that talks about the future of Asheville. And essentially, you have a policy that talks about multimodal transportation in our community.
We always talk about education, though, and some of us may have come to know multimodal transportation as a term really well, but it always helps to better educate, too, so maybe we just, I would happily sit with you and discuss why it's good for some businesses. And
No, I'm very familiar with it. I'm just concerned about the speed and the lack of concern for other people that may be affected without.
Maybe you're highlighting it.
Hasn't been contacted, we'll reach out to us.
No, thank you for that.
Sure.
And I'm not hearing this council wanting to stop the direction. Maybe it would be a good topic for us to have a work session on to kind of get our arms around sort of the global picture here and look a little bit more holistically at all the projects in the pipeline. That would be, I think, would be helpful.
And I think to that end, what might be good, and one more thing to put on our website, but I'm just wondering if in the, we have the projects all on the website and details, and is there any way that we could put on the website and on the project page where and how the public outreach was, et cetera? Again, in response to Sandra's concerns and this point that, these businesses haven't heard, there's a possibility that maybe when they look at the website, they can say, gosh, I realize that I'm not on that. Like maybe they would help us determine are there holes in our engagement policy. But also, I think to support staff in the fact that, we hear a lot that, we did public engagement, blah, 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 and then someone says, well, I never heard about that, so apparently we need to go knock on their door, every person's door. But I think if we could highlight what we've done, it might help a little bit.
We do have a few projects that have extensive timelines, but we can certainly improve, always improve, and then also be more consistent with the way we do that. But we do have some projects that are models for listing out that information, and we can certainly look at that and try to make sure that that's available on all the projects.
I think you make a good point about having everything in one place, which is part of an open meetings policy. So if managers' reports are available sooner, then people can kind of chew through the details. I know that's been brought up a lot at the governance committee, and it's why I support an open meetings policy. So it is in one place, but also so our own documents are available to the public, and we don't have to dig into them the day of.
Okay, I will turn it over to Kim Marmon-Sachs now for an update on ARPA.
Didn't you say that about half an hour ago?
Yeah. Good evening, council members. It's nice to see you again. It seems like a long time since I've seen you.
You're a little nervous now, Kim.
So,
kidding.
No, I'm going to go briefly through just an update of where we're at with the ARPA funds and how we're progressing, because it was May the last time I spoke to you. So I'm going to go through just the key takeaways, I think, from the last time. We agreed that we had done a very robust evaluation process and selection process. To date, we have had 27 projects funded to a tune of 24.9 million. And 18 of those 27 were from the council resolution in May. So we have staggered the start of the 18 new ones because of the involvement with trying to get things on the Treasury website, setting up the contracts and going through that. So we've been doing 5 at a time each month as we've gone through the process. And that seems to be quite successful because it gives us enough time between each one to get going. All 18 projects, the new projects, will be under contract by the end of this year. The response to our process as we've gone through, we followed Buncombe County with a lot of their projects, and then we've jointly funded certain projects, and it's been interesting to see the response through our process compared to Buncombe County's. So we're trying to engage much more and be in partnership much more with the projects that we've funded. And I think people are appreciating the opportunity to have some input as to how we measure the performance going forward, what kind of metrics we need. And I'm kind of being the conduit to make sure that the Treasury get the information that they need on the financial movements of that money. But we are able to support much more some of the projects in having some input into how they're running their projects and building capacity. So we have $1.376 million left that have not been allocated as yet. So, and just briefly to just kind of remind people, these were the categories that the City Council approved back in September last year for the funding. And then also the delineation of how we looked at the scoring process to focus on equity, project plan and evaluation, and then a little bit less on the organisation's qualifications because we had to go through risk assessment with the Treasury for those anyway. So just a quick review of the timeline. It started back in April last year where the funds came through and the City Council highlighted that the funding was a priority for 2021-22. September 27th, so almost a year ago, we sent everything out for RFP. And then October the 13th was the first kind of meeting with the community. I started just before that, I think on October the 12th, something like that. So November the 15th, applications for funding were due. We did the review and evaluation from November to December.
updated with the City Council. We did presentations from the applications, staff meetings, and the whole process all the way through to May the 10th, when the council made its initial funding awards. Then since we had a kind of a bit of a hiatus in June whilst we got through fiscal year end, so we didn't do any contracts or anything like that at the end of the fiscal year. So we started in July in earnest with actually orientating, is that a word? orienting the new projects with what was required, finalizing contracts, going through draft agreements, and then through September, we had project kickoff meetings and performance management meetings with the funding recipients. So that is ongoing. We've started this month to do that. So the process is we've prepared the legal team with the Treasury and School of Government prepared a contract template. And I think Erin Miles, before she left, was a key part of that. We divided the sub-recipients into groups to stagger the onboarding, and we've gone through draft contracts, and then once the contract is signed, we go through a kickoff, and this is the part where they really get involved in their performance metrics and the kind of things that we're trying to measure going forward. And then there is ongoing weekly, monthly support and reporting, and also looking at performance metrics. And Eric Jackson and his team are also working in collaboration with everybody and the projects to make sure that we've got a robust project management process going forward. So these are all the projects that we have, the 27 that are ongoing. The ones that are highlighted in green are the ones that are either in progress or ready to start.
It's very small, but is there,
There's a lot of green, though.
is there
That's
going to
the good
be
thing.
a place people can find this on the website so
Yes.
they can make it as big as they need to?
And I'm actually going to just come on to that as well in a second. So we've also been developing an Arpa dashboard so that the public can see what is going on with those. And this is just this is in the development at the moment, and this is what it's going to look like. So there is various different ways that you can look at the information and the data. So you can look at it by category or by the projects, how they're progressing. So there is a number of different ways that you can cut it on the Arpa website. So any information about the projects that have been selected is already on the Arpa site on our website. So this is actually just a cut from the actual development side at the moment, and this will be live by the end of the month. It just you can click on the project, see how they're progressing and things like that. So and it gives an update of the percentage that are awarded. No, you can. You want me to stop or? Okay. And then again, the dashboard can be cut. You can look at different aspects of it. So it gives the public a lot of flexibility in looking at whatever angle they might want to look at within the projects to get an update. And then a new piece that just came in 2 weeks ago, and I think this is coming up later on in some of your business. We applied for Arpa funds that leverage affordable housing projects from Dogwood. And actually it went very quiet, so we didn't think that there was any more coming from that. And then a couple of weeks ago on a Friday, they let us know that we had actually got the funds. So I think that's coming through to you for a budget amendment and things later. But the city was awarded $1.6 million from Dogwood Health Trust to provide additional funding for ABCCM and Habitat. So with the Habitat funding, that actually took them up to the total amount that they requested. ABCCM is still a little bit below that, but we will run this additional funding, even though it's coming from Dogwood and we have reporting to do to Dogwood. We are going to run it in exactly the same way as we are doing the Arpa projects. So not to confuse the projects, but also it helps us to build this capacity and resources within the projects that we're supporting.
Okay, so not to gloss over this, but just everybody note you're hearing about this content, which is going to be later in our agenda to vote on. So this is your presentation for that piece.
Yep.
In advance.
So we will have to follow the Dogwood process, but in the conversations that we've had so far, we are going to run it. It's going to be an additional set of funds in the Arpa projects, and it will be run the same way. the reporting that we have to do to the Treasury will suffice for the reporting to Dogwood as well. So rather than, kind of duplicating effort and things like that, we're going to just keep going with the same process because it seems to be working, and it is being received very well at the moment. So the next steps is just to complete this orientation and the draft contracts and getting everybody under contract, adding all the projects to the Treasury system, which when we get to the next quarter's reporting, all of the new ones have to go on at that point. Up to this point, we haven't been able to add them, but it is open now to add that. We will go through the kickoffs, and everybody will be running by the end of this year. It's a year on, but I think we're still going at a very good pace. I went to a training at the North Carolina League of Municipalities last week, and there are so many people there that haven't even started to think about how they're going to use the money, because there's still a lot of complexity with the Treasury and what's allowed. The rules still keep changing. Wow. July the 27th was the last time the rules changed again. So I think people are kind of, just holding fire. So we're a little bit behind Buncombe County, but we are going at a pace that's faster than a lot of other of the groups in North Carolina. So although it's taken a year, I think it's been a good year. And I think we've been very diligent and careful how we've approached it. And I think we're doing this in a different way. So, and it seems to be being well received, as I said, with the projects, because they're much more involved, and it is like a partnership as opposed to just us giving them money and telling them what to do with it. So, and then the other important thing to note is that this Arpa project is also being fit into the overall City of Asheville project management framework that is being developed at the moment, so that we're all trying to, align with that to make sure that we're consistent with everything that we do. So, and then just again, the key takeaways. I think the process has been good and robust all the way through, especially through the evaluation and deliberation that you all did to actually get to the 18 new projects. We funded almost all, $24.9 million of the 26.3. So we're getting there, and then all 18 projects will be under contract, the new projects, by December the 31st this year. So that's it.
Well, we want to thank you again for all of your great work around this, and you made us look so good. I got an invitation to the White House next week to talk about this, along with the mayors of Charlotte, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and Raleigh. So thank you for making sure we're not one of those communities that's behind the 8 ball here.
Yeah, I was surprised at the training last week how many people are still, were there trying to learn what everybody else was doing, and there was a significant amount that had not started yet.
I have 3 things.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go for it.
Remind me again, when do these funds have to be spent?
They have to be spent by December the 31st, 2026. They have to be obligated by December the 31st, 2024.
Okay, so there's not much time. Okay,
No.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Kim.
Oh, no, it's good. Thank you for the presentation. I think the dashboard will go a long way in helping folks be able to follow along, just like we've been able to do with the bond program. How are the equity and feasibility scores working? Have there been any unexpected changes? Are those just shelved for now, or are we still referring to that?
We are still referring to it when we get to the project metrics. And so when we're looking at the performance management of the project, then we're starting to look again at the scores that we did in the evaluation. So in our internal risk assessment that is not fiscally based as the Treasury risk assessment is, in that we are returning back to the evaluation process that we used. And in the same way that we use the scoring for equity and inclusion at that point at 40%, we are doing that in the performance metric. So we are concentrating on those 3 categories that we looked at in the evaluation. So yes, it is coming to the fore as we start going forward.
Great, I'm glad we didn't shelve that. And then the other thing that my concern is around is the remaining ARPA funds. I know we talked throughout the process of potentially setting aside funds for a low barrier shelter. But we've depleted those funds now to 1.37. So we're going to need more partnership and funds if we're going to use that towards a low barrier shelter, obviously. But I wouldn't want us to wait until we're at the deadline to be having that conversation.
If I could just say in response to that as well,
we also had the 6 million that we held back that is, kind of budgeted in different ways at the moment. So there is still that. It's not all completely taken. So the 1.3 million that we have still left is actual, kind of separate from all of the other decisions that you've made. So the 6 million holdback, it is being used in various ways at the moment, but that is still there. But there's a different decision, obviously, that has to be made at that point. So this
Sure, that would be a
1.3
great update for council to have full information on,
Okay.
if that's possible.
So just to be clear, the 6 million we did set aside for future needs is still there.
It is still there. It's accounted for in different ways as we went through the budget process, but it is kind of set aside, and we haven't, kind of utilized that in the.
For example, I thought part of it was
So
our
we may
sales
want
tax
to have Tony come and clarify.
Yeah, wait, hold on,
Tony-
it's not,
Tony's
yeah, don't make it sound like we got a check weekend,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yes, that's-
Yeah, we don't have $6 million.
Right, we were
it's not-
balancing the
it's not
budget,
sat
and
there,
part
but
of
it's
it.
been, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been
Wait,
earmarked.
don't let Tony have.
Tony McDowell, Finance Director. Sorry, not completely dressed to be up here, but yeah, so the uncommitted remaining money is the 1.3 million that Kim mentioned here. We did appropriate some in the budget this year. As we go through the budget process, or through the budget this year, the fiscal year, hopefully we won't have to utilize all of that, and so we may be able to return some of that, but we'll definitely update you all in the coming months on that.
When you say all of that, some of that, you're talking about the 1.3?
Yeah, let me go back. Let's see, what's
Yeah. You remember we added some, I believe, for possible pay increases, or, we did a number of the things, and we
Right.
said, if we perform better, we will
Right,
not
urban
use all
forestry.
of that.
Yeah.
That's
Urban
correct.
forestry
So I
was
think
on
that
that.
that's what we're talking about.
And I know this is kind of small, but they're about, I don't know, maybe not halfway down. There's $2 million that we allocated in the general fund budget this year, and also $300,000 in the transit fund budget. And like Ms. Campbell said, if we perform better than budget this year and we don't need those monies, we'll return those to the pot to go with the 1.3.
Right, so for all intents and purposes, until we hear otherwise, it's accounted for other than the 1.3.
That's
Is
correct.
how I thought.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I may have had some confusion there as far as how the funds were allocated.
No, I think you were just saying, if we do not use all of that funding for all of those other things related to city operations, that money will be returned, but we don't know
Right, so
what
we're
that
not,
is right
yeah.
now. I hope that helps.
It does. If we had a $6 million remaining pool, we would need to be allocating it.
We totally agree.
And we don't have $6 million.
But at the
We
same
do
time,
not have $6 million.
we did commit to partnerships for a low barrier shelter, so this is what we have left, and it's not enough, so.
Well, and
Well, it
I will
may
offer this,
not.
so the study is outstanding on the low barrier shelter that Dogwood requested be done before they would agree to partner on whatever concept we land on, and that study will be done in December. The $3 million was based on the concept of the Ramada, so we know that concept is now going to permanent supportive housing, so we don't know what the cost will be if we do move forward. I would like to see us move forward too. Hopefully our portion of it won't end up being $3 million, but we don't know that yet, and you're right, we may need more money then.
Additionally, at the
And
time, we
might
thought we
have-
were going to have opioid funding come through that has now been mostly reallocated back towards
The
counties.
county, yeah.
Yeah, but after the document the report is done, it will be probably doing a normal budget cycle, and we can account for whatever that potential increase may be from the 1.3. So it's the stars are aligning, I believe.
And while the stars are aligning, if we can get updates on sales tax revenues, I know it's a few months behind, that would be a
Yeah,
great start
we
to
are
align.
actually going to be giving you quarterly updates.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Kim while she's up here?
No, but a thank you. I know when we were talking about the Dogwood Health Trust last minute news, I know that staff, some of which are in the back of the room right now, really jumped at the opportunity to make that grant happen at the last minute. So a special thank you.
Yes, indeed.
I said that I had 2 updates. We just have one
additional thing that we want to add, and I apologize for not saying that earlier.
Do we need
This one will
Kim?
be very quick. No, we don't need Kim.
We freaked you.
This will be Ben Woody, who's going to give us an update. I know that we all have been receiving lots of communications regarding the Murphy Oakland
Yes.
tennis courts, and we just want to update the
I would like to
community.
tell the members of the public who haven't yet sent us an email about tennis and pickleball. There's still a chance.
All 5 of you that have not sent us an email, you
Yes.
can still send us an email.
So thank you, Mayor, members of council. I only have one slide, so this will be brief, unlike the number of emails we've received on this topic. So as the council's aware and the community, the city is receiving increasing requests for access to pickleball courts. That has typically been a public comment at this meeting for many months now. And of course, the Parks and Recreation staff is trying to balance the needs of all the users. That's both tennis and pickleball players in the community. Just for some context, the city has a total of 11 free public tennis courts. 6 of those are lined for pickleball use. Typically, when you line a tennis court, it can be used for 2 pickleball courts. So 1 tennis court equals 2 pickleball courts. They're all joint use courts at the moment. The particular site that is the subject of all the emails, the Murphy Oakley Park tennis courts. We just want to reiterate tonight that there are no final decisions made on the future of that tennis complex. Whether that is converted into pickleball-only courts or not, do not know the answer to that. Parks and Recreation is working on that, having meetings and getting input from the community. As a matter of fact, the Parks and Recreation staff, and this was scheduled before the emails were received, but the Parks and Recreation staff has a meeting scheduled for tomorrow with leaders of the Asheville Tennis Association as well as pickleball representatives. And I think part of the purpose of that meeting is to discuss not only the use of this facility, but just the use of all the tennis facilities in the community. So again, this is a topic that is under active discussion with the staff, and of course, as always the case with Parks and Rec, the input from the community will be used to help determine what the best path forward will be. So I just wanted to share that and let the community know that yes, there are conversations occurring around this, and no, there are not any final decisions made at this time.
Any questions?
Thank
Dee
you.
Tyrell, we see you back there, Parks and Rec Director. Be brave tomorrow. You can do it.
And so, Mayor, at this time, this concludes the city manager's report. Appreciate your attention, the active engagement that we have, which is kind of unusual for the manager's report, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we are moving now on to the public hearings agenda. The first item on the public hearings agenda has been withdrawn by the applicant, so there's no action to take on that item. And then the next 2 items, items B and item C, I actually need a motion to recuse me because I see that someone from my law firm is representing the applicant, which I didn't know until I was sitting in this seat. So is there a motion to recuse me from items B and C?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm going to just step back there and hand it over to the vice mayor. And
Okay.
you don't really need this.
We'll now hold a public hearing to consider an amendment to, We'll now hold a public hearing to consider rezoning 645 Brevard Road from RS8 Residential Single Family High Density District to Commercial Business 2 District. And I believe Will is here to present. Yes, ma'am.
I believe we need to combine the 2 public hearings into 1 public hearing with 2 separate votes.
Okay, so we'll hear both public hearings on B and C. Leave it like that.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and members of council. Will Palmquist with the Planning and Urban Design Department. I'll be presenting this rezoning request for 2 properties at 645 and 651 Brevard Road. As mentioned, there are 2 separate applications technically, but given that they're very closely related,
we will give one presentation about the rezoning for the two properties. As you can see here, the two properties look highlighted in red. The existing zoning is RS8, residential single family, and the proposed zoning is community business 2. The request is for a straight rezoning, so unlike conditional zonings that we typically bring before you, where a project is specifically designed and part of the application, this would just change the underlying zoning, and then those properties would be zoned to do everything that's typically allowed in the community business 2 zoning district. As you can see on the aerial image here, the two properties are single-family houses currently located kind of between a couple different nodes of more commercial uses. So car dealerships further north on Brevard Road, and then further south where there's other CB2 zoning and also office zoning. There are other uses and services like vet clinics, human clinics, and offices, real estate, that type of thing. I'll point out that the property to the north, which is 645 Brevard Road, is owned by the same entity as that which owns the car dealership, and also this kind of oddly shaped parcel in between, which was rezoned a few years ago to community business 2. And then the property to the south has a different owner, but is being represented by the same applicant for this request this evening. The future land use for these properties in the city's Living Asheville Comprehensive Plan is urban corridor. No change in that designation would be required for this requested rezoning. The future land use of urban corridor is compatible with this request in that it promotes redevelopment in the form of mixed-use residential, commercial, and office uses that place emphasis on pedestrian-friendly amenities and infrastructure. Staff also finds that the proposal supports a number of goals in the comprehensive plan, such as that it prioritizes growth and development within designated growth areas, encourages large-scale land assemblage where possible, particularly along corridors, and establishes accessible and well-connected commercial nodes consistent with strategies outlined in the plan's growth areas. And then this is just a very brief summary of the types of land uses that are allowed by right in the proposed CB2 zoning district. One of which to highlight is regarding residential, in that the residential RS8 zoning does allow for things like single-family and townhouses, but the community business 2 allows for duplexes and multifamily residential. So there'd be the potential for more residential units at these locations in the future. Also allows for recreational uses, food and beverage and entertainment, lodging only in the form of bed and breakfasts and homestays, so not hotels, office uses, retail, and service uses, some light industrial related uses, and then a variety of other miscellaneous uses as well. The two requests were reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the August 3rd meeting, and they voted 7-0 to unanimously recommend approval of both of these rezoning requests. And finally, staff concurs with the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommends approval of the proposed rezonings. That concludes my presentation. I'm glad to answer any questions you all might have.
I have some questions. Can we go back to the list of uses? So this is the block of, the same block as Mrs. Hyatt's Opera House. And so when I think about community gathering and recreational uses and food and beverage and entertainment, and then certainly residential, I'm excited about those things. I wonder, is it possible at this point to limit lodging use?
Not through this application. Limiting it beyond what's currently allowed, which includes bed and breakfasts and homestays. That would be a separate legislative action that would potentially impact all property zone community business to, if this were a conditional zoning application, that could perhaps have been or could be a condition for that type of rezoning. But as a straight rezoning request, it either, it's a little more black and white.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because we're having issues with regulating short-term rentals. So moving from a residential use to one that allows lodging use is tricky. I wonder if this community has capacity for it.
Any more questions for staff?
And homestays are allowed across a number of zoning districts. They are allowed in the RS8 district currently, so that wouldn't change. So, maybe that's part of a separate conversation, more specifically addressing homestays. But as far as the rezoning goes, yeah, it wouldn't really change that use being allowed as it is currently allowed in the RS8 district.
Any more questions for staff? I believe the developer's attorney, Brian Golden, is here.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Council members, my name is Brian Golden. I do represent the applicant. An agent for the applicant was here, but he had to go back and meet an electrician at the car dealership, so he's unable to talk. Mr. Palmquist did a great job introducing the rezoning request. As he indicated, it's not a conditional rezoning request. So all of those uses that you see up there would be allowed in that CB2 district. And Councilmember Roney, it's an excellent question. The unfortunate aspect of it is it would require some kind of text amendment to take out the homestays from the CB2 district, as well as, I guess, the RS8.
Thank you for noting that.
And as your ordinance indicates, I think it's section 7-55, on a straight rezoning like this, we, the applicant, is not allowed to indicate to you all what plans are out there, because it can be any one of these plans. And so I know on the staff report, one of the cons was that they were going to have to tear down a residential structure that's on one of the buildings. And I don't know that it's a con, it's not a negative that building would be condemned if it wasn't torn down. But the opportunity for single-family duplexes and multifamily houses are out there. It's located on one of those major corridors. It is adjacent to the community business districts. Again, there's some to the north that have the car dealership. There's a veterinarian clinic, an accountant's clinic, or an accountant's office. Sometimes I guess if you go to an accountant,
You might feel like that.
Yeah, you might feel like that. So that is one of those corridors. And again, I think your staff did a very nice job and a comprehensive job talking about the plan consistency. It encourages responsible growth, increases the mixed-use development along this transit corridor, and it facilitates real estate development that maximizes public benefit. And so when this council is looking at the statement of consistency that it would have to make under 160D, we would ask this board to adopt the statement of consistency based on the information that the staff gave you. Also, as it relates to reasonableness, it talked about the attributes of the surrounding area. Staff did give a detailed, albeit quick, analysis of what's to the north and what's to the south. Over to the east of the report, or over to the east of the site, is a large property that's planted with trees. I think it's owned by the Biltmore Estate or the Biltmore Company. But in their compatibility analysis, which I think would fold well into your statement of reasonableness, it is compatible with the surrounding land uses, which, as under 160D, goes to the relationship between the actual and permissible uses. Again, talks about the
pros, the positive aspects of it, provides the opportunity for more intense and efficient use of land along that major highway corridor. And the only negative was the demolition of that single-family house, which at this time, there are no plans. My client owns the car dealership. Then there's a little easement to allow some access to residential units. And then they own that awkward, that Mr. Palmquist was talking about, that awkward lot. And this kind of bookends that entrance way. So it does a nice job of protecting the surrounding community, but as well as my client can be a good neighbor when he's ready to develop it to make sure that it's appropriately developed. So we would ask this board to just approve both requests for the rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Any more questions for Mr. Golden? All right, I'll now open the public hearing. Being that we don't have any people signed up for public hearing B or C, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Now we have to have two motions here, so can I get a motion on public hearing item B?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the conditional zoning request for the property located. This is for 645 Brevard Road from residential, single-family, high-density to community business, and that the request is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meets the development needs of the community in that the request. Number one, it prioritizes growth and development within the designated growth area. And number two, it encourages large-scale land assemblage along a corridor. Three, establishes a well-connected commercial nodes in a growth area.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, got that, Maggie? Can I get a motion for public hearing item C?
I move to approve the conditional zoning request for the property located at 651 Brevard Road from residential single-family high-density RS8 to community business 2 CB2, and find that the request is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meets the development needs of the community in that the request, 1, prioritizes growth and development within designated growth areas, 2, encourages large-scale land assemblage along a corridor, and 3, establishes accessible and well-connected commercial nodes consistent with strategies outlined in the plan's growth areas.
I'll second. Sandra.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
I'll turn it back over to you.
That door is locked.
Okay.
Just don't have an emergency. That concludes the public hearing agenda. And moving on to page 3. Under new business, we will hear from Nikki Reed regarding a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with Homeward Bound of Western North Carolina to continue outreach services. And this is something we requested be heard under new business, even though it's a renewal of an existing agreement. We thought it would be a good idea since this is a topic that we're discussing a lot in our community lately. So thank you very much for coming to talk about it. And I see our Homeward Bound director is here as well.
As is Emily Ball, our Homeless Strategy Division Manager. So yes, I'm Nikki Reed, the Community and Economic Development Director. I don't have a formal presentation. However, I wanted to share a few remarks about the city's partnership with Homeward Bound for street outreach services. Street outreach is more important than ever, given the current housing crisis and the increases that we've seen in unsheltered homelessness. The goal of street outreach is resolution of the housing crisis for unsheltered individuals and mitigation of the effects of that crisis on the community. Very tangibly, street outreach means service providers at Homeward Bound are directly engaging people who may not be able to access
services. They build rapport with those folks by helping people meet their basic needs and then use that as a launch point to engage them in housing services and other support. This is proactive street outreach, but it is also responsive to community requests. This is the 4th year that the city has funded this program, and Homeward Bound works closely with community paramedics as well as city staff across departments as really an integral part of the city's response team to unsheltered homelessness. And so what's notable about this item, as well as the next item on the agenda, which is the partnership with Dogwood Health Trust, which we've heard about earlier, to fund Habitat for Humanity, ABCCM, really is the true value of these partnerships. These are great examples of how agencies that provide direct services, be it Homeward Bound, the street outreach, Habitat for Humanity, and the construction of homeownership housing units, and ABCCM, a long-standing homeless services provider that is now building permanent supportive housing units, a partnership between direct service providers and funding partners with Dogwood Health Trust, really coming together to work to address these community issues. So we appreciate these partners, appreciate the funding support, and the services that these agencies provide. So I'm happy to answer any questions or other staff that are here. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I do think it's important to highlight that the city is not a direct service provider serving those who are experiencing homelessness, but we allocate and pass through funding to agencies in our community that do provide services. And we partner with Homeward Bound to be more effective in addressing this crisis. So I think for a lot of folks, we've been learning the last several years how complex and interwoven this whole area of service provision is. So I hope some folks find it helpful to have this discussion here tonight just to sort of highlight how this partnership works. Are there any questions, comments, or a motion?
This is Kim. Wait, do we have a motion that's drafted? Do we have to read? If somebody else has a poll, you should go for it.
I move to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with Homeward Bound for street outreach services for a period of 1 year, with the option to renew for 4 additional 1-year periods, subject to budget approval and availability.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We have one person signed up to speak under this item, Jonathan Wainscott.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Wainscott. It seems like it was just a few months ago, because it was, that we were talking about giving Homeward Bound a whole bunch of money. And since the last time I was here talking about Homeward Bound receiving a whole bunch of money in the nonprofit industrial complex, I noticed that they were advertising on another nonprofit radio station, WCQS BPR, and I found it interesting that, you know, this nonprofit that's there to help the homeless has enough money to go out and give more money to another agency, and I don't think that they're really advertising their services to the people who need them. I think they're advertising themselves to get yet more money. And I talked to Reverend Michael Woods several months ago about the homelessness issue, and he was telling me that the history of homelessness here in Asheville has been exacerbated, I believe. I don't want to put words in his mouth, and if I'm wrong about that, I'd be happy to be standing corrected. But the more services we provide, the more homeless people come here. It's just like building a restaurant. If you build a restaurant, you get diners. If you build a baseball field, you get people showing up to watch a baseball game. And if we are a regional hub for services, as well-intended and heartfelt as that is, then we become the solution for Greenville and Spartanburg and Anderson, South Carolina, for their homeless problem. And I've never really believed in the myth of busloads of homeless people being dropped off here, maybe not by the busload, but we are seeing busloads of people being taken from Texas to Chicago and DC for to the cities that are providing the services to them. So I could very easily imagine that mayors of other municipalities near here that aren't as liberal as us would like to solve their problem by just bus tickets to Asheville. Come to Asheville, go to Homeward Bound, and they will hook you up. And I don't think that we are helping. I think that we're enabling a homeless population here at the expense of our own
community members. And I think that, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we're on our way because we have so many good intentions, and it's like it's a Ponzi scheme, I mean, they want to reduce and eliminate homelessness, but if they did, they would put themselves out of business. So we'll see an increased caseload, and then they'll come back and say, we're providing all of this service, and we're seeing the numbers go up, therefore we need more money, and we'll give them more money, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I think that we are, wrong-headed in our approach to all of this. And thanks for your little thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right.
We don't have anyone else signed up to speak under this item. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, next items B1 and B2. And Brad, do we need 2 votes on this or 1?
We need 2 votes for a separate vote for the budget amendment.
Okay. We already heard the presentation regarding this item. This is essentially receiving funds from Dogwood to enhance these projects we've already funded with ARPA dollars. So the first is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept funding from the Dogwood Health Trust ARPA Advantage Affordable Housing Funding Opportunity. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
To authorize that resolution?
This is Sage, I'll move.
Second.
All
Ms.
right.
Gwen.
We have a motion and a second, and let me just double check. I don't think anyone signed up to speak under, yeah, we don't have anyone under this one. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and the next, do I have a motion to adopt the budget amendment in the amount of $1.6 million?
I'll make a motion for the associated budget amendment from the Dogwood Health Trust, ARPA Advantage Affordable Housing Fund, to the city's special reserve fund in the amount of $1.6 million.
Ms. Gwen, I'll second that with a lot of thanks to Dogwood for helping out.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to the Vice Mayor for boards and commissions.
Boards and Commissions Committee met this morning and reviewed 15 possible appointments. 9 of the vacancies came after resignations. So we'll start tonight with the ABC Board, Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. The committee recommends the appointment of Chapel Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I never say that. That's why I go so fast.
Well, don't do it.
Yeah, until Gwen opposed. Until you opposed last week. I was like, oh, I never asked.
Don't worry. I'll
Historic
speak up if I
Resources Commission. The committee recommends the appointment of Amy Moxley. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did you skipped over audit committee, did you?
No applicants, no applicants.
Well,
No applications received.
Oh, yeah, okay.
but I still skipped it, but.
Just holding open.
Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee. We have a recommendation to reappoint David Nash and David Bartholomew. Is there, and we'll also re-advertise for the 3rd vacancy. Is there a second?
Second.
With a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And for multimodal, the committee recommends the appointment of Jack Eagleman. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Soil erosion and stormwater review. The committee recommends the appointment of Pete Hildebrand and Catherine Rossford. Is there a second?
I'll second, Sandra.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the Urban Forestry Commission, the committee recommends the appointment of Karen McNeil. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the last conversation we had this morning was on the appointment of the ABC Board Chair. We had an opportunity to possibly make an appointment, but we decided
instead that we were going to hold an interview at the committee level on October the 11th. Now, the recommendation that we discussed during boards and commissions was that, I wanted to offer you all the opportunity to submit questions, and then we pose those questions at the meeting during an interview process where we'll hear from the two candidates, Robin Cape and Max Hayner. But I want to change that just a little bit. I still would like you all to submit questions for the ABC Board Chair. I'm going to ask that the candidates submit written responses, and then that night, October 11th, during our Boards and Commissions meeting, which is at 1 o'clock, we'll just do an interview process and ask clarifying questions at that time. But I wanted them to submit written responses so that you all have time to review before we make the decision that evening.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Excuse me, Vice Mayor. I
Yes.
apologize if I did not hear this correctly, but on the appointment for the Urban Forestry Commission, I believe I heard Karen McNeil, but I think there was also an appointment of Alex Kirby. I don't know if that was mentioned.
It wasn't mentioned.
It's off,
Incorrect.
okay.
You don't have the latest over
I
there.
thought you were helping me, Brad.
It's
Give
your
him a break.
birthday, you get
It's
a
your
pass.
birthday. It's your birthday.
Everybody.
I think that's all for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that concludes the regular agenda, and now we're going to move into informal discussion and public comment. We have a number of folks that have signed up to speak under informal discussion, public comment. And again, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and just watch the lights on the lectern, and red means stop. So the first person is Ori Baber?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Ori Baber. I'm a resident of the city of Asheville, and I'm a PhD data scientist working for a local land use and planning firm called Urban 3. I'm here tonight on behalf of a consortium of community partners who are investigating the presence and magnitude of disparities in the property tax administration in an 18-county area of western North Carolina. Almost 2 years ago, our team uncovered deep disparities in how properties are assigned taxable value in Buncombe County. This is the single most important factor determining a property owner's tax bill. We brought this issue to the attention of the Buncombe County Board of County Commissioners, county executive leadership, and staff at the Office of the Assessor. Unfortunately, to date, the county has yet to take meaningful corrective action to curb these disparities and to ensure that property assessment system no longer inflicts financial harm on the community members who are least able to withstand it. As an incorporated municipality, one that levies property taxes, the city of Asheville has an obligation to ensure that these disparities are adequately addressed. This year, the city of Asheville will collect over $81 million in property taxes from city residents, representing the largest source of revenue for general fund activities. This council has identified the following priority budget areas for fiscal years 2022 and 2023. Reparations, reimagining public safety, improve and expand core public services, equitable and affordable housing and stability, houselessness strategies, and neighborhood resilience. I would like to ask that you reflect on what it means to fund these priority areas with property taxes that currently carry a legacy of financial harm on our low-income and communities of color. There may be some assurances knowing that in this case, Buncombe County and the city of Asheville aren't alone. This is a problem that has been identified in nearly every county across the US. What makes our community unique is that we have made unequivocal commitments to race equity and to reparations. The existing disparities in our property assessment system undermine these commitments and will continue to do so until they are corrected. I would like to very humbly suggest that this council, 1, request an update from the county on the Buncombe County Ad Hoc Reappraisal Committee's outcomes and recommendations. 2, request a presentation from the Office of the Assessor on their plan of action to correct the existing flaws in the assessment system. And then 3, finally, leverage and mobilize the political capital of this body to apply the appropriate and necessary pressure to your colleagues at the county to take immediate corrective action on this issue. Our entire research team, grassroots collaborative team, our policy and development organization, and our community engagement team are at your full disposal should you have any need for further clarifications on the statements that I've made this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ellie Halsey.
Madam Mayor, City Council members, greetings.
You can just pull that microphone, just pull it down. Yeah.
I'm here to share with you the Western North Carolina People's Declaration of Peace 2022. Whereas each year, International Day of Peace is observed around the world on September 21st, the United Nations General Assembly has declared this day devoted to strengthening the ideals of peace through observing at least 24 hours of nonviolence and ceasefire. And whereas the theme of 2022, International Day of Peace, is End Racism, Build Peace, the people of peace in Western North Carolina urge leaders to initiate reparations to those in our communities who have been left out of generational wealth gains because of racial discrimination. Whereas local, regional, and national governments are called upon to transition to an economy based on justice and sustainability, people of peace urge developments that go to homegrown businesses that pay livable wages with jobs that actually create peace. And whereas governments are responsible for making wise decisions, people of peace urge our leaders to hear calls from home and around the world for peace, especially for dismantling of nuclear weapons and negotiations among countries involved in the Ukraine and other conflicts funded by our tax dollars around the world. And whereas communities thrive when they feel safe, people of peace urge public safety departments to be non-militarized, use force minimized, and de-escalation maximized. Whereas communities desire to protect planet Earth's land, air, water, and climate, people of peace urge utilization of clean, renewable energy in our homes, business, government buildings, schools, churches, and transportation modes. And whereas residents want their children, family, and communities protected from violence, the people of peace urge enactment of responsible gun violence prevention laws and regulations. And whereas communities prefer to spend more on education, healthcare, housing, and environment, the people of peace urge less be spent on militarization at the federal and local levels. And whereas a prosperous community is the goal of all residents of Western North Carolina, we, the people, of peace, envision cities, towns,
I'll finish it for you.
Natives and immigrants are equipped to reap the harvest of a just and peaceful community, county, state, and world every day of the year.
Thank you.
And there is a second person.
And it says, therefore, we, the people of peace in Western North Carolina, hereby designate Wednesday, September 21st, 2022 as our 13th Annual International Day of Peace in Western North Carolina, and urge our brothers and sisters to take necessary actions such as protesting, resisting, and contacting elected leaders regarding transparency and legislation so we can all end racism and build peace at home and around the world. And thank you for emailing that to us in advance. Next speaker, Rachel Bliss. She's okay. Claire Hanrahan.
How y'all doing? Long meeting. I really applaud all of you for your willingness to act as a governing body in this city. The problems are all very, very complex, and I've been here over 30 years, and I live right downtown. I'm one of the landless poor with the benefit of the lovely Battery Park apartments. And for 5 years, I've been managing on a wing and a prayer, the most lovely elder and sage community gardens. And I came from those gardens
luckily another volunteer is watering them, to stand in support of the International Day of Peace and this wonderful proclamation. I hear a lot about the issues of homelessness. Every day I see people from my vantage point in the garden walking by. Some are really obviously mentally challenged, others a little scary, others hordes and swarms of tourists come by. Over 100 a day walk through our gardens, literally when the doors are open. And taking individually, these tourists are wonderful individuals. They refresh our city. They bring a lot, especially the one-on-one conversations that can happen on the front porch that our Elder and Sage Community Gardens is. I really wish for all of you the wisdom to make good decisions that benefit all people, including the least among us. It seems with all the tourists coming in that there's sort of a denial about the reality of our urgent climate change that's coming on. And it's very, very sad to see so many hurting people. And a young woman spoke about the issues of criminalizing drugs. I spent a little time in federal prison for peace action. A misdemeanor trespass yielded 6 months of very good education into who we're imprisoning and why. So I really do urge a decriminalizing of a really bad problem of drugs. Why are people taking so many drugs? There's a despair going on among us. There's an awful lot of people spending a lot of money in this town, and from that other presentation, a whole lot of money going around. Now, we for 5 years have managed a community garden on a wing and a prayer, and I'm talking dollar bills coming in our box. So it can be done. We can do some change if we look out our own windows and see where is it that there's something that needs work. I thank you for listening. I didn't know quite what I would say, but that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Next is Nina Tovish.
So I have just 2 reports to make to you this evening, Council, and thank you for your patience. The first comes from being in a meeting yesterday evening of the Shiloh Community Association, where a representative from Ingalls gave a report about their plan to completely redo the South Forest Plaza, put in a brand spanking new giant Ingalls gas station, drive-through pharmacy, reshape the whole retail situation there, water management, stormwater management, and so forth. There were 2 concerns that emerged from the community around that project, which I'm just calling to your attention now. I know that it's got to work its way through permitting and planning. The first was an issue of pedestrian access to this new building from the community of Shiloh, not just from Hendersonville Road. And they're putting in a big retaining wall, which will be 16 plus feet high. They're also raising the whole grade of that lot. There was request from the community for people to be able to walk to this grocery store rather than having to go circuitously around either by car or on foot on highly trafficked Hendersonville Road. The representative indicated that he thought it would be too expensive to put in ADA compliant access. I'd like to just push back on that a little. I think that's something that would be very beneficial for the community, something to consider. They also gave a heads up that they really, really would like to see a traffic light at the corner of Jeffress and Hendersonville Road. It's a very dangerous intersection for people coming out of Shiloh community by car. So look, I know that's a DOT issue, but look for requests from the community to come around that. Second thing I want to tell you about is the Boards and Commissions Realignment Working Group. We had a subcommittee kind of meeting this afternoon. The one that was a hybrid meeting was very constructive. We anticipate that we will have a very focused survey ready to go out to past boards and commissions and current boards and commissions members. The purpose of that is to gather data that we can use to shape recommendations for council about the realignment process. I'm pleased to say that our group is really focused and working hard, and I hope that you will await with interest the result of our recommendations to come. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Daniel Young, but I don't see Daniel, so just in case he's out in the hall. Daniel Young. Okay. Next is Christina, and I should be able to say your last name now. Dupush. You should just write it phonetically for me, just so you know.
Hello, my name is Christina Dupush, and as you all well know, I represent the pickleball community, so good evening, everyone. I am so ecstatic I'm holding my hands behind my back because as a citizen, as a community, and a person who has spent 42 years in government, we feel so listened to. No matter what happens at the meeting tomorrow night with myself and several other pickleball representatives and the wonderful invitation we received to join a conversation with the Asheville Tennis Association, we are thrilled. I come here so many times, and I've spent my life at council and commissioner meetings from Murphy to Manio in North Carolina, and I've seen a lot. And there is something about feeling heard. And let me just tell you, those two slides out that we saw tonight, worth $1 million to us. And I say all that with no expectation. This is why I believe, and I have encouraged this beautiful community to come in this room, wear orange, be patient, keep coming. And one day, when people have a moment, and you think you could at least explore something, and I have really used the word explore this conversation. A couple of you came to Rabbit Rabbit. I was in Nova Scotia. I couldn't believe it. People were sending me pictures. Y'all were so wonderful, the ones that came. And for you who didn't come, I know you care about us. So on behalf of the pickleball community, we are extremely grateful. And as a citizen of Buncombe County, I will be a huge advocate to talk about that this government system works. It does work. As a citizen, I've had the privilege in my career in government to learn patience and tolerance and difference, and you don't always get what you want. But you always, and what I see in this council, is you always have the right to come and speak and ask. My mother taught me you can ask anything as long as you can accept no and yes equally. And that was a very, she was a French woman and she was way beyond her time. And so I just wanted to say thank you. We are looking very forward to the city manager, whoever encouraged, supported Dee Tyrell and Wayne Simmons to make that phone call and reach out to me and some people to come tomorrow night for a meeting. It was a gift, just a true gift of how all this works. So I am proud to be a citizen of this community. I am proud to know and to see that, and even if this wouldn't have come, what I'm doing tonight and what you've done, and it wouldn't have come to 2024, I really believe I would come and stand in front of you with the same message, because every good thing takes time. You have tight budgets, you have total unbelievable demands. My world is with disability and poverty, so I understand so much of what is talked about in these meetings. But I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to show up as collaborative partners. We're going to listen. We visited parks and we're ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bobby Smith. Jonathan Wainscott.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Wainscott, and I would like to say bravo to Councilwoman Kilgore on this bike lane issue. I did go on the tour of this a few months ago, sponsored by Asheville on Bikes and attended by city staff. And I was incredulous with so much of the layout, I couldn't even finish the tour. I was losing my mind. Down on College Street by Rankin Avenue and where Top's Shoes back door lets out across the Mediterranean Cafe, the plan is to put the bike lane on the left-hand side of the road, move the parking that's going to be there off of the curb, put it in the middle of the road, then have a buffer lane so that when people get out of their car and disembark in the middle of the road, they won't get run over. And then you've got what's left of the road on the right-hand side of the what's left of the road. And there's not enough room for emergency vehicles to get down. But when I pointed this out, they said, no worries. The bike lane is big enough to drive a fire truck through it in case they need to. And if that makes sense to you, I think that you should reconsider this. I just went on the City of Asheville page to look at the drawings that were handed out on this tour. The dimensions are wrong. I took a tape measure out there on College Avenue and found 4 feet of mistake. It doesn't even fit. So it's not for a lack of vision and understanding that I oppose this. It's because the dimensions on the thing are wrong and they don't even fit. It's horrible design. The field dimensions are wrong. There's places where the dimensions are given in decimals and in increments of feet and inches. It's sloppy. So whatever thing that we put out there, and now it's going to be on the consent agenda, is like, it's horrible. It's just like a little sprinkling of some community engagement along the way so that we can say that we did that. It happens in town all of the time. And I would love to walk this with you. I'll take a tape measure and a piece of chalk out there again and show you where it doesn't fit. All of the gutters and the curbs are listed as 30 inches wide, 2 feet for the gutter and 6 inches for the curb, I believe, and that's wrong. There's none of those measure that way. And, it's terrible. The design is terrible. Go ahead and do it. The other problem that we have with this is we're going to grind off all of the stripes that are existing there and put new stripes on it. We're not doing this on fresh pavement. So when the new lines start wearing off, they're going to look like the old lines that are done. You're not doing this well. Don't do it at all. It's terrible. Thank you for stepping up. I would love to get together with you between now and the next time. Grab a couple more people and put together a 10-minute on this because it's bad, bad, bad. And I'll stick around unless you guys got what do you call it, the closed session? You doing closed session? No? All right, well, I'll hang out and stick around for you. And it was nice to see everybody else.
Okay, Dave Mittler.
I hope you received my email from Mrs. Burleson to hopefully give me more than 3 minutes, because I am an anonymous group of Asheville City Watch. Yes?
I'm not aware of
We received the request, but go ahead and proceed, but you have to have 3 other people waive their time.
Well, that's hard to do when you have people that wish to be anonymous. Who is Asheville City Watch, which is about 5 years now? We are a group of business people, single mothers, teachers, contractors, parents, business folks. We have firemen. We even have an attorney that's in our organization. It's people who love Asheville. I have made multiple calls to the city manager, hopefully getting a return call, have not had anything in basically 6 months. It makes me look bad as a liaison of my group, because when I have our meetings, they're like, are you not contacting people? Why aren't they getting back? Why aren't you getting answers? Da, 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 da. So I would appreciate if I make calls to the city manager to at least get a response at some point. And this has been, if you probably go back to messages, probably 5 months, 6 months. I was able to contact Tony, the assistant of the manager of stormwater today. It was interesting hearing about pickleball and the parks. You have a park at the Weaver Park on Merriman Avenue. I've called the city attorney's office and brought the attention to them, as well as OSHA. And I think the city did get a little bit of information from OSHA at some point, a letter letting them know what was going on. No response from the city attorney. You have a lawsuit sitting at Weaver Park that's been there for 6 months. I have been filming it, watching it. I had to personally, the other day, take yellow caution tape and surround your crater. I finally got a hold of Tony today, the assistant from Mr. Davis. He said, Mr. Miller, we are going to try to expedite it, get it done by next week. He's going to try to pull a crew from some other project that's going on, and he says we're going to try to fill it in with cement. He told me to talk to a subcontractor, Mr. McIntosh was supposed to get the paperwork together to get him to come out there with a pumper truck and fill the hole. Again, this has been since April. That hole has grown from the size of your emblem there to now about 6 foot in circumference, 6 foot deep, let alone the ground around it is weak, ready to fall. And I'm a contractor. I know how water undermines. I was glad to finally get the confirmation on the Great Patton Corridor. We all live here. We all deal with this traffic. Try to drive up Patton Avenue at 5 o'clock on a Friday. 8 years it has been since that corridor has been timed and sequenced. You all know how much growth happened in this great city that we love. How that happened, I don't know. It was on the budget last year from the DOT, from what Mrs. Henderson told me. She said it got cut off the budget. I asked, why didn't it get delegated to Mr. Putnam? I used to do that work in South Florida when I was a kid. It doesn't take a whole lot to sequence in time 9 lights that's on the corridor. So I'm glad to hear that that's happening. Hopefully it's going to follow through in November, so all of us can start having a little better driving home when we want to go home. And in future, if I could please get a response when I'm making a phone call to you and just to talk about issues, I would greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, and feel free, our emails are all on the website. You can email all of us. We get a lot of constituent concerns that come directly to council. And,
I appreciate that. And I want to just say, Mrs. Burleson, I greatly appreciate it. You are a great honor to the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, council, we do not have closed session tonight, so with that, we are adjourned.